This is Life Strategies with Monique.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome again to another episode of Life Strategies with Monique. I'm your host, Monique Petaway, and today I have with me Lara Waldman. Lara is an inspirational speaker, healer, abundance coach, and author of the book, Money Manifestation Mastery. She empowers conscious leaders, change makers, visionaries, and business owners to create a life of true abundance and expand into the next level of impact, influence, and income. Lara, welcome to the show.
Hello, and thank you so much for having me.
I'm glad you're here. I'm excited, but first of all, tell me where you are, because I want my listeners to know where you are.
Well, I'm originally from Vancouver, Canada, but I've been living in London, England for 20 years now.
That is so amazing. One of these days, I'm going to get to London. I'm going to visit there.
Oh, that would be nice.
Awesome. Well, Lara, you have some amazing things going on. So, I mean, you're working with leaders, change makers, visionaries. You're doing all these great things. But before we get into all of that, I want my listeners to hear a little bit more about you, your background, and your story. Yeah.
Well, yes, it's a long story. So I'm from Vancouver, as I said, a really beautiful part of the world. And if you looked at my life growing up, it was from the outside in very, very fortunate. We had a beautiful home, family, my two sisters. We had wonderful summer holidays on our sailboat, going to trips to Europe, skiing in one of the top ski resorts in the world, Whistler, and everything on the outside looked really squeaky clean. A big moment, a big event in my life happened around 12 years old, where my godmother, my mother's best friend, committed suicide, which was very traumatic, had a huge impact on lots of people. But for our family, what happened was it just triggered something very deep, particularly within my mum. And she went into really deep depression. And it was like everything that had been unresolved within her, within the marriage, all came up in a really kind of big and challenging way. And I think at that time, my parents just didn't have the tools really to manage that situation. And it became very difficult. It was a very dark time. When I was 14 years old, I came home one day to find out that my mom and half the stuff in the house had gone. And my life had gone from this, seemingly kind of perfect situation to suddenly very dark. In my memory, it's like goes from this, it's light, and then it just goes really dark. And I went into a very self-destructive time where I was, taking drugs, drinking. I was really promiscuous. I was on a mission to self-destruct, really. Didn't realize it at the time. I realized this in retrospect. And then when I was about 16, I don't even know. It's almost like it happened overnight, where I suddenly looked at my body, and I think I went to the doctor, and because my energy was really low, and I was taking blood tests thinking there was something wrong with me. And the doctor said, I think you're depressed. And she got me on the scales. And I remember suddenly being like, oh my God, I'd gained a lot of weight. I'd always been very slim. And I suddenly panicked about this weight gain. And from that point onwards, developed eating disorders. I really tried to starve myself. I was like exercising like crazy. And I started to really withdraw. And I went into a very deep depression that lasted for a long time, and immense self-hatred and really self-punishing with around the area of food. I was in a really dark and difficult time for quite a long time. I remember I went to university, first year university, like everyone did, and where I grew up. And I remember looking around me and just thinking, there's nothing for me here. I just didn't connect with anything. Again, I was depressed and really still struggling with eating disorders. So I was really removed. Everyone was partying, having fun, and I was just not getting involved in any of that. And but around that time, I was starting to read books on spirituality. I remember going to this meditation class. I'd started to opening up to this other world. I didn't really know what it was. And I remember at some point in that time, I had this vision. I saw myself. I can't remember exactly when it happened, but I remember seeing it like crystal clear to this day. I saw myself on stage being interviewed and on television, speaking to the world about consciousness. I remember the vision was I was speaking to the world about the fact that we have the power to consciously create our life. And I don't know really where this came from, but I saw it as clear as day. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, this means I'm supposed to be an actress. So I'm at university. Right, I need to quit university and follow my acting career. So I did that. And I went and studied. Vancouver's got it's quite a big film and television town. And I just started studying, and then I was working as a waitress full time and studying full time. And I was on this mission, like this was my purpose now. And I have dual citizenship because my mom's from Scotland. And I remember and then again, boom, a spark. I know I can go to theatre school in London and actually be really well trained in theatre. So I took myself over to London, auditioned for theatre schools, got into a theatre school, and left, a relationship, and I was like full steam ahead on this mission, and came to London. And my plan was to do 2 years in London, go to theatre school, and then come back to Vancouver and start my very successful acting career. And basically, after my first year here in London, it was a really difficult and challenging first year. I was studying full-time. I was working full-time. I was still struggling a lot with my body and exercising like crazy and sort of going through this huge fight with food. It was pretty awful. It went on for a very long time. And a year in, I remember I just would have these waves. They just hit me like every, year or so, where I just got I was reading another kind of self-help book at the time and just had this hit of this purpose, this mission. But I ignored it because it would have meant quitting theatre school. So I just finished theatre school and, got an agent and tried to work in London for a bit. And then I really got in. I'd met my husband who was really into meditation, and I knew that I needed to stick to this meditation thing with huge resistance. And basically I forced myself to meditate 20 minutes a day. And at some point I started to feel these really amazing feelings of peace. And so that kept me going. And then one day, I can't remember exactly how long, I had well, actually, it wasn't even a vision. It was an experience. I had my eyes closed. I was sitting on the bed, and suddenly in my mind's eye, I saw in front of me, and I heard through my ears, big flashing lights in front of me, "You are a healer." And it was very dramatic. And I remember just collapsing on the bed in floods of tears, sobbing my little head off, because I knew in that moment I was not going to be an actress. And I knew that my whole path was changing, and I didn't understand what it was because I didn't know what a healer was. I sort of thought it was something to do with my hands, but that's it. So I was really pissed off. I was really upset. I had a huge ego meltdown.
Yeah.
And but I was like, right, universe, or whoever's talking to me, whatever this is, I'm not looking for it. You bring it to me. Really mad. And I was working at that point in a health food shop, and I started to really learn about health, whole food, like healing, herbs. I was really starting to, without realizing it, I was starting to learn about all of this stuff on the side. And came across a customer had left their bag. I went through the bag, and I suddenly saw this flyer, and it was for this healing course. And I looked at it and I was like, oh my God, I'm supposed to be on that healing course. Just knew. And I phoned up, booked in. I went on that healing course, and that first weekend, it was like my whole life changed. And that moment, I was like, this is my future. So I took this course, and I was suddenly like, so as you know, there's a bit of personality traits coming out here. I was like, right, this is it. So I went full on into this healing world, and all of this started happening very quickly, where within 6 months, everything just came to me where I was offered a place in this clinic, and I started working as a healer very, very quickly and starting to have clients very, very quickly. And basically what happened was there was a big time period where I was, healing clients. I was on this mission to save the world. Basically, as I was healing others and learning about healing, at the same time what was happening is I started to really begin my own healing journey. My focus was helping others, which is great, but at the same time, really I was also healing myself. I was understanding the connection between.
And I'm glad you said that, because I wanted to, that's what I was really trying to see or hear, is like, okay, you've learned the healing, was there a process or a time, because you went through so much as a child, or between the ages of 12 and you said 14 and 16, when did that time and that space come where you experienced your own healing, through everything that you were learning?
Well, yes, I think what was great is I think it sort of revealed itself to me as I went along. I received a lot of healing, so I did a lot of healing exchanges with other healers. I went to healing like practice groups and stuff like that. And in those sessions, what started to happen is I started to feel feelings that I had numbed. Because when you go through trauma and when you go through pain at the time, especially as a child, is you don't have any coping strategies. So we tend to shut down. Or we develop strategies that are very young, like very young coping strategies. So what I started to do is re-experience things that I'd shut down, numbed, shoved away. And that was really being, mirrored in eating disorders as one of the symptoms, and really starting to dig deeper into the pain that I hadn't really let myself feel. To be honest with you, I haven't stopped this process since. It's been a 20-year intense journey on an inner journey. What I've realized is, like, that doesn't necessarily stop. There's been so much to uncover and discover about myself. And that's really been kind of a huge part of my work, is as we're helping others, as we're healing others, we're also having to look at ourselves. We're not separate. It's not that I'm all like holy and perfect and then I heal. No, we're as we help others, we're also developing within ourselves, and that journey doesn't really stop. So, but what was amazing is I just, at that point in my life, I really started to understand the connection, because I'd had a lot of physical health problems. I had something called Candida, IBS. I had real problems with digestion, real problems with like a food addiction. So I would be kind of going through this deprivation and then obsessing about food constantly. It was a real mental pain. And what I started to understand was that was a surface symptom of something much deeper going on the emotional level, on a mental level. And I just didn't really realize, I wasn't aware. And then my healing journey started bringing all of this up to the surface, which was very, very difficult. But at the same time, it was a relief, because a release, because I had finally tools to move through this stuff. So yeah, that was the first step of my healing journey.
Wow. And you've mentioned a couple of things that I really wanted to touch on, and that was going back to the meditation that you mentioned earlier. You talk about being able to help with meditation and healing. Talk a little bit more about meditation, because I don't think a lot of people understand the importance of meditation and how meditation really can help an individual in their space and in their place where they are currently. So could you talk a little bit more about meditating?
Sure. My journey and my experience of meditation is grown and evolved over the years, because at first there's different levels, right? When you first start doing something, first start practicing something, it's kind of a beginner level. And now I've been doing this work for, over 20 years. It's turned into something where I use it really, really powerfully in a slightly different way. But I mean, gosh, this could be a whole conversation in itself. But the idea is that our whole society, and the way that we're trained is very much in doing, the value of doing. And we get up and we're busy and we're distracting ourselves constantly with noise, and information and, social media and news and like work. We're just go. The idea with meditation is a place to stop place to breathe, a place to be. And on a basic level, what I see is it's a place for us to process all of the information that's coming at us all day long. And it's a place to find like a reset within ourselves. And what I find is if we sit and we breathe with ourselves, first it's uncomfortable because we have to like feel feelings we might want to feel that we might have been rushing around and avoiding. But eventually when we sit there long enough, our body and our mind will start to balance itself out. It will come to like a reset, a place of more stillness and balance, which, I mean, there's endless benefits, but it's like preventative medicine. It brings down stress levels, anxiety, that mental noise that can be very, very destructive as well. And it helps us to come back to our center. And for me, this is essential. I teach about manifestation. I teach about constantly creating our life. I teach about, abundance and creating a life of abundance. And this is like the essence or the foundation of transforming your life into a more positive experience, in essence.
So in essence, for an individual who doesn't meditate daily or is not in the habit of meditating, what would be some of the first steps or the first things that a new person could do to actually start? Because just sitting for a long periods of time might be a little bit much for somebody first starting out. So what can a new person who's new to trying to start meditating, what can they do to at least start the journey of making it a consistent thing in their life?
Well, I ended up creating sort of a meditation tool to help with this because I found so many clients, they wanted to meditate, but they're quite resistant. So what I recommended was starting with 5 minutes a day, maybe for the first week, where you just literally just sit and breathe for 5 minutes. And your mind within probably about 5 seconds or less will wander off. And when you catch your mind wandering off into thought, you come back to the breath. And then your mind will wander off again, probably in the next few seconds. And every time you notice, you come back to the breath. And start with just doing this for even 2 minutes a day. Just make a commitment. And then you can extend it to 10 minutes, to 15 minutes, to 20 minutes. But I think sometimes people get quite daunted. And there's a huge protection mechanism inside to avoid us feeling. So it's very easy to just want to avoid it. The other thing you can do is I've got a few guided healing meditations on my YouTube channel, for example. You can follow a guided meditation with listening to someone's voice or listening to music. That helps some people. The other thing you can do is it's possible to do moving meditations. Some people find you can get into a meditative state, walking in nature, playing music, dancing, something like do knitting, for example, or art. There's other ways that you can meditate or get into that meditative state. If that idea of just sitting and breathing is impossible, like I know for some of my clients, it's just really difficult. So then we want to connect to, okay, where do you find that place of stillness? Exercise even can be really helpful. So moving the body can also, you can get into a meditative zone moving your body. So it doesn't have to be still. I do recommend that as well. But it's also just about what are those activities that help you feel peaceful, and how can you do that easily? Because you want it to be something that you can do that's not like a really big deal. You want it to be accessible, easy to do, and ideally free as well, right? So it's not something you have to pay a lot of money to do. Mm-hmm. So it's also just about getting creative with yourself about what you can do. What's that first step to make that work for you? Because otherwise we can end up, sabotaging or avoiding those things. So if it's, long story short, I recommend just starting with 5 minutes a day, sitting and breathing. And if that's not possible or that's too difficult, finding other creative ways to tap into that space, that meditative space.
Right. So are there better times to meditate? Like I've heard some people say morning is best. And if that's not possible, are there better times to meditate for an individual who really doesn't?
I recommend morning because in a way it's easier to find time. Like you can wake up a few minutes earlier. Once the day gets going, it's quite hard to stop, especially if you're in a habit of doing. So I do recommend in the morning. For me, I have to wake up a little bit first. So I like to, get up and have a cup of tea and before I do my meditation practice. But you have to work within your day and your routine. Or the end of the day is a really nice time as well. But again, you have to know yourself, know your schedule. And sometimes people are tired at the end of the day, or it might be easy if you're trying to set a new habit. It can be harder if you're like tired at the end of the day. So I recommend doing it in the morning before your day gets going, like before you get on your phone or get on your computer, or you start getting into that kind of rushing doing energy. That would be my recommendation.
Okay. So out of everything that you've experienced from your childhood and, growing up and then finally finding, your purpose and, your destiny and what you're supposed to do in your life, what has been, or what has been your greatest struggle through this?
My greatest struggle, one way of saying it would be loving myself and valuing myself. So with my great vision and my great intentions of wanting to help the world and speak to the world, it was all about giving energy outwards and helping everybody else. But it took me a long time to understand that I was part of that as well, and that I had value as an individual. And it wasn't until later on, and that's what led me to get into the money manifestation work and the abundance work, was learning about the value of receiving. It wasn't just about giving and helping everybody else. It was also about receiving for myself. And that was a real challenge, because then I had to look at my self-worth and the parts of myself that didn't feel lovable, that didn't feel worthy, that didn't feel deserving. And I would say that's it. And so it's been a really long journey. And then I discovered that everybody has the same issue. Once I started coaching people with money manifestation and business owners and all these successes, and I started working with really successful clients, and I was like, oh my God, everyone's got this running, and what is this all about? So it was really fascinating. But so self-worth. And that's what I would say.
Yeah, and I can definitely agree with that. I've run into a lot of women who deal with those same types of issues, dealing with love, value, self-worth, just feeling valued, period, especially nowadays, even with social media, it's so much being bombarded at you. It's kind of like you run into this comparison game. You're always constantly trying to compare yourself to others, which makes it really, really difficult to, to continue to value yourself when you're too busy comparison. So I totally can understand that, because I see it quite a bit. So for you, how has all of this changed you?
Goodness, I mean, in so many ways. And I would also say the journey still continues. It's what I've realized being on this path for 20 years. I've been on this real mission to heal myself, heal the world, step into this vision, step into my purpose, live my purpose. And what I've realized is, oh my gosh, this journey doesn't actually end. There's always more to uncover and discover. And it's so funny, because I think, especially when we're looking at healing or manifesting or trying to live our life on purpose, or whatever we're wanting to create, there's this sense of like chasing a dream. We're chasing something, we're trying to get somewhere. And what I realized is there's actually nowhere to get to. The only place is coming back home to ourselves. So where I am now is I feel more at peace. I feel more relaxed. I feel more at ease. I feel more in myself, embodying myself, owning my worth, owning my value, which has radically transformed everything. Because I was sort of chasing something. I was trying to get somewhere, and it took me 20 years of trying to get somewhere to realize, oh my God, it's just here, isn't it? This is it. Damn.
Wow.
So
that was really powerful what you just said. I mean, and I really hope my listeners got that, because that was very powerful, because we're always chasing something. And for you to just say that there's nowhere to get but home to self, that is just a powerful statement.
And I've learned this the hard way. Life, and also because I've been on such a mission, I've been exploring consciousness, exploring the mind, exploring healing, understanding, like trying to understand humans and human psychology. And I've been really pushing the boundaries and like studying everything under the sun. And this is what I've come to realize. At the end of the day, it's something extraordinarily simple. And yet it's actually sometimes the things that are the most simple are the hardest to get on board with. Just like when I talk about meditation, it's sitting and breathing. It's how much do we fight that? Mm-hmm. And yet when we embrace that simplicity and come home, and this is where I'm at now, is with the people I work with, this is where we begin this is where the magic begins. This is where the magic begins, because when we're in that place of beingness, like sitting in ourselves and sitting in our value, oh my God, we tap into the most extraordinary magic, our power, our ability to consciously create our life from a place of wholeness rather than from trying to create from lack. And when we're creating from wholeness and we realize we've already this is it unlocks something incredible. And this is what I'm playing in now. It's like, wow, the magic of creation from that place of wholeness, which is extraordinary. And it's so much fun. There's still so much to expand into and grow into and evolve into. So the journey doesn't stop. It's just like, oh, this is the center point. This is that place that really helps us to grow for me, it's a more sustainable, nurturing and nourishing way. So that whatever we're doing isn't like draining our energy, burning us out, frazzling us, making us feel stressed and overwhelmed. It's the opposite. It's more nourishing, supportive, aligned, connected. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yes, definitely. I mean, I love what you're saying because it's so empowering. Definitely.
Mm. And it's all easy to say. And I think for me, it's like also coming back to deep self-compassion, deep self-acceptance, and deep self-love, like embracing yourself where you are now, because you can only be where you are now. Mm-hmm. And it's so hard when we're in pain or we're challenged or, life is, kicking our butt. It's so hard. It's so hard to accept the now, especially when it's painful.
Mm-hmm. That's
but
why
I've
we're trying to get somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. Like, get me out of this place.
Yep, let's get there. Let's get somewhere. Yeah, definitely.
What I've learned
that's
is
amazing.
I would say one of the biggest things I've learned is to embrace the pain and to surrender, because when we stop fighting and we drop in, this is again kind of coming back to this meditation practice. So if there's a trigger or a challenge, coming in and breathing into it, we find a doorway through it. And life, what I have learned is it's got our back. It's here for us. Life is here for us. Even the worst things that seem terrible are here to grow us, are here to evolve us. And it's awful people listening might be like, oh my gosh, shut up. But actually in the moment it's awful and you don't want to face it. But it's in retrospect, you can see, oh my goodness, that situation. Like without that situation, I wouldn't be where I am today. Mm-hmm. So what I do now and what my practice is now, and also what I support my clients through, is how do we drop in and drop into the pain, into the shadow. And then what I found is, which is magical, and this is what I've done as a healer for 20 years, is when we surrender and relax in, breathe in, then it starts to evolve and transform. Then things start to shift. And then it starts to feel like magic. But what we've done is just surrender. We've relaxed into the situation. And from there, solutions come, ideas come, doors open. And we find a pathway through.
So talk a little bit more about what you do currently, because I know as I introduced you at the beginning, you're a speaker, healer, and an abundance coach. So talk a little bit more about what you do for your clients.
So I work with clients who really have a sense of, they've got a mission, they've got a vision, they've got a real sense of often a big purpose. They tend to be business owners, entrepreneurs, artists, visionaries, people who really want to make a difference. They got beautiful hearts, and they are ready to, or they're feeling that call that it's time to expand into that next level, the next level of their purpose. They know they're not fully fulfilling their mission, their purpose, their calling. And we also work with helping them. So how does that also get mirrored in your finances? So one of the stumbling blocks I came across, all these beautiful, like well-meaning, beautifully hearted people, we also in this world at this time, also we have this currency, this money exchange, and how to also like attract in and welcome in more money into your life and your business as you are bringing through your great purpose. So we work on welcoming more money in alignment with your purpose, which might not seem to be connected on a mind level, but there's a beautiful, beautiful connection there. I teach clients how to manifest, how to consciously create in their life and their business. And so much of this work, like you could say 80%, but sometimes I feel it's even 90%, is all about our inner alignment, our connection with ourself, our relationship with ourself, and our relationship with life. So we do a lot of inner work, accessing that the part of the self that is aligned with abundance already, connecting to the heart, connecting to our intuition, our inner wisdom, our inner guidance, and really let that part of you lead your life. So we're getting out of the head, we're getting out of the ego, we're getting out of the mind, we're getting out of the limiting thoughts and beliefs, we're getting out of the old limiting programming from our parents or ancestors or society. We're tapping into like heart consciousness, that inner wisdom, that part of you that is aligned with abundance, that is immensely powerful, that knows how to consciously create. And I see it as a co-creating with life, the universe, God, source, whatever you want to call it, and tapping into that part of ourselves. And then learning how to create, really listen, trust, and create in your life and your business from that place. So it's a powerful inner alignment process, which then inspires action out into the world, not from the ego, not from the mind, from the heart, from the soul, from whatever you want to call it, the very, very powerful part of you that's connected to all of life. And why I'm so passionate about this is that I know that this is everything that we create from this place, from this heart-aligned place, soul-aligned place, is also contributing to the whole, to the collective. It's not just about creating from ego, which has created so many of the problems that we're seeing in the planet today. When we're creating from this heart consciousness or the soul, we are creating in a way that's contributing to the whole, ourselves and beyond, because we are truly not separate from each other. And this is what I feel really, really passionate about now, and why I've been called to work with the leaders and the change makers, because we need to come back to wholeness. We need to come back to connection and heal and shift these immense imbalances that are going on this planet. So that's kind of now we're tapping a bit more into my personal purpose, but those are also the kinds of people that I'm working with now.
Awesome. And you also have a book, Money Manifestation Mastery.
Mm-hmm. Yes, this is and this is nice. So this is a nice kind of intro to manifesting. It's intro into a lot of the stuff I've been talking about. It's my 5-step process to activating your abundance. It takes you into, like, it teaches you a daily practice as well. It's not difficult. It's really simple, but immensely powerful. And it teaches you how to manifest money in alignment with your soul's purpose. But it's not just money. It's about, money is a vehicle to accessing much, much deeper part of yourself. And you can use these tools and practices to manifest anything you want in your life.
Awesome. So how can my listeners get in touch with you if they want to reach out to you, or, have you as a speaker or coach or whatever it is that they need? How can my listeners get in touch with you?
Oh, it'll be a pleasure to connect. I have a few different ways. You can find me on YouTube, put in Lara Waldman Abundance Activator. I'm on Instagram under Lara Waldman Official. I'm on Facebook, Lara Waldman Abundance Activator again. My website is larawaldman.com, and you can email me directly as well, mail@larawaldman.com. So there's lots of ways to get in touch.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Lara, for being on the show. You have shared some amazing, powerful strategies for our listeners today. And I pray that if they didn't catch it, hopefully they'll rewind it and listen again, because I know I got some nuggets today from you on just hearing you talk about meditation, which I know I definitely need to do a lot more of. But to my listeners out there, thank you so much for tuning in today. Make sure that you reach out to Lara. She's an amazing woman. All of her information will be in the show notes. So make sure you click on that, reach out to her. I know she'll be more than happy to reach back out to you. So until next time, to my listeners, stay educated and empowered.
You've been listening to Life Strategies with Monique. Contact Monique Pettaway at www.moniquepettaway.com or info@moniquepettaway.com.